This is a quick video to compare Godox 600Bi to my new Nanlite 240 in the studio environment. It's not a real studio, it's a garage. My go-to studio light is Godox F600Bi, and I also have a hair light, fill light to my right, and you can see there is a spotlight, Amaran T2C with a spotlight attachment. So this is 36-degree lens, and that projects this gobo on the background. And there is also accent light, which is Godox CR10, I think. And whole setup takes 125 watts. And also the Blackmagic camera is plugged into the wall, so it draws probably 25 to 30 watt. The key light gives me f4, which is proper exposure for my S-Log3, because I got f2.8 in the camera. That means I should expose like +1 stop on my face, and this is what I've done with this light. It is running at 8% to have this exposure, and I'm always running this light with the custom crate, because it would flood the whole thing with light. So it is with the crate, and actually the position of the light is just to be not in the frame, like the edge of the light is just barely out the frame. And there is the projection light, the fill light, the hair light, and the accent light. And here is the Nanlite waiting. So what I will try to do, I will try to set up the Nanlite in the same distance as the Godox is now, and test it without the diffusion and with 2 toxic diffusions I got. And then I will try to move it forward as far as possible to keep it still out of the frame, but to keep the same angle as the Godox is. Might not be possible to keep the same angle, but because of the mount it has, but I will try my best. So this is the look with the Godox. I'm recording on 2 cameras because I don't expect there would be much difference on the tight angle, this one, but there would be probably more of a difference on this wider angle. Although it depends how far the light would be, the Nanlite, because the Nanlite has 60-degree angle beam. So the difference might be on this, actually, on this angle, on this, I don't know. And for sure, the background should be less washout, because when I turn on the Godox, the background became really washed out. So without the key light, the background is really saturated and looks dope. When I turn on the key light, it's really washed out, so the key light is hitting the background too. That might not be the case with the Nanlite, we'll see. So now I will stop recording and I will try to install the Nanlite in more or less the same position as the Godox is, although I'm not sure I would like center it in that position because it's like 4 times smaller, or move it more to the side. I will see what looks better and decide, and then when I would try to move it to the closest position, then probably it would be the same angle as this one. So this is the Pavo Slim, the same position as Godox was, and I can see that it's definitely harsher light because it's farther away, so it is smaller, so I know that would be harder light. I encountered the small problem that at 2%, it is now without the diffusion, so at 2%, it is a bit too bright. It is at f4.3. At 1%, it is a bit too dim. It is at f2.8.9. So probably this one is closer to the exposure I have before. but it's a bit darker. And is it better, is it worse than Godox? Hard to say. It doesn't look that bad, although it looks definitely harsher, and this is with 2%, so it is much brighter than other setup, because that's the smaller light. So this the same distance as Godox was. Then I would mount the diffusions, try not to breathe in the hooks, and we'll see what the difference is. And what is the power drawn now? 88 watts. So now it draws less power than with the Godox, but it is definitely less soft, and the background is actually washed out too. You can see the difference with and without light. Maybe it's even washed out more now, so we'll see. So I will mount the diffusions and see if this makes any change. Okay, so it is again the same position as before, as Godox was. Maybe it's like tad closer, because now the diffusion is attached to the light, and this is this half grid, so less dense diffusion, and I have to run it at 5%, and at 5% is at f4.1, and at 6% it is at 4.3. So this is the closest exposure I can get to have the same exposure as with Godox. The background is washed out too, at least what I see on the screen, and I'm not sure, that probably like my face is exposed similar way than before, at least what I measure with the light meter, but I think that my torso is exposed differently, at least on this shot, wide shot. Or maybe I'm wrong, it's hard to say. We'll see this on a big monitor, but that the exposure with the less dense diffusion, and it looks like that. It is not bad, but Godox is definitely much softer. So I will swap the diffusion, and actually it seems that diffusion lost so many hooks that it's hard to attach already. Like I think I attached it like 5, maybe 6 times, so it is really bad. Anyway, I will swap the diffusion, and then I will try to move it the closest to my face as possible, to still not have it in the frame, and then might be the case that it will be as soft as Godox if this is close enough, but I'm not so sure. We'll see. Although then it might be, probably it would illuminate less of the frame, and I'm not sure my whole torso would be illuminated. Unfortunately, it's not a medium shot, because this place is actually too small to have a medium shot. So maybe it would be possible with some longer lens, but I don't have any other lens for Blackmagic, so this is the angles I can get at the moment. So let me swap the diffusion. So now I have the dense diffusion, which seems to be a magic cloth, and I'm running the light at 14% to have f4 exposure of my face on my face, and it is drawing 117 watts with these settings. So that's the look. It looks like it is softer, even though the light source size haven't changed. I mean, it changed a bit because it's closer by like 5, maybe 6 centimeters to my face, because there is a diffusion. But I think that here is a much deeper shadow than before. Like this part of the image It's not lit by that light. When it was Godox, like everything behind me was brightened up by the Godox. So that's the look with denser diffusion, but the light is when the Godox was. So that's how it looks like. And I'm not sure this wider angle might be a bit darker in terms of darkness of my t-shirt than with Godox, but I will have to see this on a big screen. So now I will try to move the light as close as possible to have the softest look, and then I will remove this diffusion and attach the other one. I probably won't test the crate. Maybe should I? Okay, I would test the crate to see if that makes any difference on the background. Seems like a Velcro quality is as bad as with the diffusions. It does not want to attach. I'm running the light at 20% to have f4 exposure on my face. It draws 130 watts, like the whole setup draws 130. So a bit more than with Godox. And this is the look with denser diffusion and a crate. So I'm not sure there is much of a difference. Maybe there is small difference on the background, but I don't think so. It's really pronounced. It's rather subtle difference, I think. But I will see on the this on the bigger screen and compare it. So that's the look. And now I will try to move the light as close as possible to still not have it in the frame, and we'll see if I can get the softness similar to the Godox. Okay, so this is the closest I can get this light to my face. It is, I know I don't have a tape measure, like 1 meter 10 centimeters probably from my face. Before it was like 40 centimeters farther away, 40, 30 centimeters farther away. And now with the grid and then the denser diffusion, I'm running this at 11%, and it is 110 watts. So it is, with this setting at 11%, it is 0.1 stops too bright. It is f4.1 on my face. At 10%, it is 0.1 too dim. So that's the small con of this panel, that you can only adjust it by 1%. So there are 100 increments. You cannot increment this by 0.1%. So that's the small con. So now I will remove the grid and we'll see how that looks like. Okay, so now the light is running at 8%. It is just a denser diffusion. It seems that it unglues itself from the light, and that's the look it creates. And actually 2 days ago Nanlite released 2 new panels, RGB WW panels. It is Alien 150C and Alien 300C, and 300C is like this panel on steroids. So it is like 20% brighter, maybe 25% brighter in theory. It has better build. It is weatherproofed. It has pop-out softbox. I don't know how bad the diffusions are, but generally it's much better panel. The only con I've seen so far is that it has fans, but they promise they are 19 decibels quiet or 90 decibels loud. So they are really quiet in theory. It's hard to say what's the reality, but it is like $500 to $600 more expensive than this one. Would I buy it instead of this one? hard to say. I don't know. I'm not sure it is 2x2. I have to check this, but I think it is, and it is hard panel, so that does not fold. So it is generally better than this one. So if you got spare $500, I would probably recommend the Alien 300C, although I haven't touched it, so I'm not 100% sure. But coming back to this video, it is now the closest position I can get for Nanlite 240C to my face, and that's the look and the exposure. I think it is still not as soft as with the Godox, which was farther away, but it is the softest look I can get with this light, I think, because then I will change the diffusion to less dense one and also remove the diffusion altogether. So I guess the other two looks would be harsher, but we'll see that actually the size of the light won't change, so maybe the looks won't change. And the problem might be that I probably won't be able to expose correctly on my face, because I got like 8 settings to try, so might be the case that I won't be able to expose correctly unless there are different dimming curves. I haven't seen it, so I will check it if I have problems with the exposure. So there are two more looks, so let me swap the diffusions. And as I expected, there is a problem with the power. Like, I'm running at 1% now. It is the closest I can have this light to my face. There is no diffusion on the light, and it is a bit too bright. I got f4.3 on my face. Sure, it is still okay for S-Log 3. I can bring down the exposure in post, but I prefer having proper exposure in camera, and then in post I can just like tune it. But since it has only 100 possible settings of the brightness, then I cannot dial in the proper exposure. It is actually too bright. And I checked, there are no dimming curves for this panel in the menu, so I'm not able to change the characteristics of the dimming. That's why this is the lowest setting, and it is a bit too bright without the diffusion. And that's the look. Is it different than Godox? Hard to say on these small monitors. I kind of wonder how much of the light on this side of my face is from the panel actually. Some is, so I check the field light. I wonder if this Alien 300C has better dimming characteristics. I mean, if I have 0.1% increments, that might be actually the case to get it. Yeah, that's the look without the diffusion. I will attach the softer diffusion, or maybe not softer, like the diffusion with 1.5 stops, and see if that makes a difference. I think the biggest difference I can see is that color temperature changes a bit. With the denser diffusion, it was definitely warmer, like the city was warmer, so that's the look. So let me attach the terrible diffusion and I will check the last look. Okay, so this is the less dense diffusion, 1.5 stops one, and I'm able to expose my face correctly at f4 at 3%. So it draws less than around 92 watts now, the whole setup, and that's the look it creates. I've been able to fight the sun outside with this panel without the diffusion, and to have f4 with 6 stops of ND, I was running this at only 60%. So I think when it is at that distance, at the minimal distance possible, it looks kind of soft. It is not that bad. So actually that might be your only panel. Like, you can use it in the studio, you can use it for shots with the window in the frame, you can use it outside. It's very fast to deploy. The only con are really bad diffusions, but I think you can get some other 2x2 diffusions and attach it, so that is not a big deal. Although if this Alien 300C has better quality softbox and better quality diffusion, then maybe it's worth buying over this one, especially that Alien 300C is weatherproof. That's, I think, the most important thing about the Alien. Although it is like, in my country it seems it is like $450 more expensive, so it is like 33% more than this one. Actually, this diffusion is exactly the same diffusion Godox F600Bi has, but the Godox also has internal diffusion, which is, I think, stronger than the internal diffusion of this panel. So Godox still produces the softest image of all of my lights. It's even softer than Aputure 600D with LiDAR 150, because there is still some sourciness to the COB light, even if you shoot it through the big diffusion. Maybe when I used double diffusion, so LiDAR 150 and then the Scrim, maybe then it was softer than Godox, but I can still shoot the Godox through the Scrim and then it is even softer. I don't see much difference on my face, like when it was farther away. Yes, it seems that shadows were kind of harsher on my face. Here I don't see much difference because Godox has to be farther away to not be in the frame. I can of course angle it, but then I would have totally different lighting scenario. I would have just side lighting. In this case it is more to the front than to the side. I hope this experiment will allow you to choose the proper panel for all your needs. Both Godox F600Bi and Nanlite PavoSlim 240C have more or less the same firepower. Nanlite is actually 20% brighter, but is 4 times smaller. Maybe even the new Nanlite Alien 300C is a better choice for you, because it is waterproof, can be dimmed with 0.1% increments, which is really important with such a firepower, and seems it is even cheaper than 240C, at least in US, although it is a bit smaller. I'm actually really surprised that when PavoSlim 240C is in the closest position, it doesn't produce much harder light than 4 times bigger Godox F600Bi, which was farther away due to its size. The looks are quite similar. Yes, Godox looks is still softer, but the difference is not as big as I thought it would be. I actually like the look of 240C with dense diffusion and accurate the most, because the background looks the best. But I will still use my Godox in the studio because Nanlite is going to be my go-to panel for setups outside the studio, both indoors and outdoors. It is faster to deploy, has more firepower, and is much easier to maneuver on sets. Sure, when I need the softest light possible or I need the light for wider area, Godox will be the hero panel, but for 90% of jobs, Nanlite should be enough. Hope that helps. Affiliate links are in the description below. They really help running the channel. That's it, and cheers, mate!